Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is 10:20 p.m. Eastern Time, right here in Ontario, Canada. I'm Sean, and this is Welcome to the Geek Side. We're talking wrestling games tonight. We're talking X-Men 97 and Deadpool 3, which is really trying to hit that release date next year. I hope they do it, but it's going to be tight. Christmas movies, ones that we love and ones that maybe we don't. And we're going to talk Punk, Rollins, Punk's run so far, WWE, AEW, and maybe dive back into that chat we were having about live events last week, I believe it was, as more stuff has come out to back up. I think it was Johnny's point from last week. And then speaking of that, selfish mother Canucker who shows up in the green room before the show and is fucking chowing down on a hot dog, and I'm sitting here going, fuck, I'm hungry. I'd go for a hot dog. But you have a hot dog with no fried onion, man. I'm disappointed. What's going on? I think he's still eating. He's muted. We don't hear him.
Well, that's awkward. It's more than just a hot dog. It's a dog. Thank you. Bacon, hot dog, cheese. No onion. That.
I don't think I've ever heard that term. A whistle dog?
Yeah. Cheddar, bacon, hot dog, and your regular condiments on top.
I don't think I've ever had bacon on a hot dog. Anywho, last night, if you didn't see it, forgive my list that is not correct, but those two is. Johnny myself and Randy all had Empire Strikes Back as our favorite / best Star Wars movie out there. And we had Clone Wars, The Rise of Skywalker, and Attack of the Clones all at the bottom of our respective lists, which is interesting because we all had the same favorite film, but we all had a different not so favorite film at the very bottom of the list last night. And honestly, I didn't put that together till about 25 minutes ago. I thought for sure two of us had the same like number 12 place on the list last night, and well, I guess I was wrong. That was fun though. The episode ran definitely a little too long, but it's fun. Check it out. It's on the channel now. The Legacy of Star Wars. We talk about all sorts of things, but we definitely dive into all 12 theatrical films, and we definitely bring up points about the films as we talk about them too. It's not just us reading through a list of 12 films. So it was a lot of fun. Check that out. That's available on the channel now. Randy, how's it going, man?
It's going not too bad. It's Wednesday. I got through most of Dynamite tonight. I actually got up to still have to see Swerve and Mox go at it, but it's been a great show so far tonight. So I'm looking forward to finishing up when we're done here.
That is a match I will definitely be watching. Let's start here. It's not where I intended to start tonight, but we'll start here anyway. Have you guys heard the rumors that popped up today in a couple of places? It's baseball related, which we didn't say we would talk about off the top, but we mentioned it last week. We might talk about it. Obviously, Ohtani signs that contract that whatever the hell that was. I believe 10-year, $700 million deal, of which during the playing time he will only make $20 million. There was no signing bonus. It's 2023, people. No signing bonus. When Vernon Wells signed his contract extension, Vernon Wells, a really good player back in the day, but not a superstar, not a player who would be, wise to build a team around. When he signed, I believe it was a $126 million extension with the Blue Jays. He got $25 million just for putting his name on the dotted line. No signing bonus on this Ohtani deal, and $680 million deferred until after his playing career, where he'll get basically $68 million a year for 10 years. And people have already come out and said the reason for this is if he's not living in the state of California at that time, he does not have to pay the California state tax. The interesting thing is, let's say he was still living in America and he was living in Florida or Vegas, where there is no state tax. I hated the deal. And now there's rumors that something similar might happen with Yamamata or whatever his name is there, the pitcher. I know it's not in the CBA, but at what point does the MLB step in, fellas, and go, this has got to stop?
Until they actually implement some sort of salary cap or some sort of profit sharing that actually helps the small market teams, this is going to happen with big market teams, period. I mean, how many times we've seen the Yankees pull something like this off, or, I mean, even the Mets, because they're big markets and they've got the money to throw at people. But then you got small market teams like the Royals who have to build through their farm system and do all the small things correctly. And that's how they won the World Series against the Mets. They played small ball and they won that way, proving that you don't have to be a big market team to win a World Series. But still, I don't get it. I don't understand how teams just are going to throw money like this. No, like it's nothing. I don't get it. That's money that could be put elsewhere to better use than basically making sure Ohtani can wipe his ass with gold-lined toilet paper the rest of his life.
Well, let's be clear. Okay, it's deferred payment. His CBT number, which is the number that matters for their purpose, is still $46 million. He is on payroll as a $46 million player. That's his competitive balance tax number. That's his rate to the league. That is what he is making for their purposes. Because deferred payment, it's not new. We celebrate Bobby Bonilla Day every year. That's been a thing since like 2001. Ken Griffey Jr. is still being paid by the Cincinnati Reds. Max Scherzer has deferments in his contract. This is the first time it's on this epic scale.
Yes, $68 million compared to a $1.2 or whatever it is a year for Bobby, who got.
Well, that's also a difference in times, though, right? Like that was $1.2 per year in 2001. I think when he negotiated that, it's a much different animal than
7 or 8 now. It ain't 68. That's for damn sure.
No, it's definitely going to force them to make a change in the CBA, but it's not. This isn't the Dodgers thing. That's the thing that's bugging me about this. This was Shohei's deal. This was the deal he pitched to every team. That's the deal he wanted so that the team could be competitive during his prime years, which is, in my estimation, for someone whose number one want was to win, is the best decision he could have made.
I don't know. I just
it's a loophole that needs to be closed. There's no doubt about it. Like I think you'll see in the CBA probably a max on deferment.
Oh, there's gonna have to be, because it's one thing to have no cap, not even a soft cap, really. But like most teams cannot compete with that if that's the type of business that's gonna go on.
Like I said, none of the small market teams could have pulled this off.
Yeah, but none of the small market teams can compete for a $20 million player. That's not a fair. Let's be honest. The Tampa Bay Rays were never signing Shohei Ohtani. It was never going to happen. The Kansas City Royals were never signing Shohei Ohtani. The small market teams are already priced out and have been since the dawn of time. Since the dawn of free agency, they've been priced out of free agency.
I get that part, but it's not fair in terms of.
It's completely fair because that's the way the system's always been.
That's why the system needs to change.
The only way to change the system is to eliminate the small market teams.
If you want absolute, just a straight competitive, if you want parity in baseball, something has to change. You can't just have the teams.
Baseball has parity. Tampa Bay is out there voodooing their way to the World Series once every 5 years with a payroll under $150 million. You can do it.
I'm glad you added
Moneyball in Oakland. You can compete with a low payroll if you do it right.
But the odds are minuscule.
Exactly.
Oakland and
every decade has a small market team that plays above their means. Every decade has one.
No, but the only two teams, in my opinion, that have sustained that level of success are the two teams that you mentioned, Oakland and Tampa. They are anomalies that Moneyball makes some sense to some extent, but the stuff that Tampa has pulled over the years is just...
let's point to the opposite end of that spectrum. The teams that spend all their money. How many World Series do they have? People talk about, this is the part that's bugged me in this one. If you look in the modern era, so post first lockout in 94 to present, the Dodgers have won 1 World Series. The Yankees have won 3. The Mets have won 1. These teams that are spending $200 million aren't winning the World Series every year. They're not.
No, but let's be honest. In professional sports, statistically, it's proven if you spend more money, your chances of success are higher. It also depends on how you spend those dollars. And we've seen some just brutal baseball contracts in the past. I know Albert Pujols, for example, obviously one hell of a player that in the last 3 or 4 years of that deal, eek.
I mean, let's be honest though. The last 3 or 4 years of the deal were a hell of a lot better than the 5 years previous.
Which is really bad.
But that's the thing with Albert he's almost the anomaly because he signed that contract and dropped immediately.
I mean, sometimes the body just fails you when you least expect it. Like we expect that, like say in football, we know like certain players get to a certain age, we're expecting that drop off. Sometimes it doesn't happen right away, like what we saw with Tom Brady. But once he got a couple more seasons, once he got 2 seasons in at Tampa, that his body just shit the bed, just kind of like Peyton's did on that last Super Bowl run with Denver. But with baseball, you never know when it's going to happen. You get these big contracts, you know. You look at what DeGrom got by Texas, and his body just shit himself. It just crapped out on him in the middle of the season, and you got what you got out of him. It's a shame because I like the guy.
Yeah, but he'll be back next year though. Like
right. It's just his body goes. It's like one season he's great, the next season his body just kind of betrays him. Then he comes back strong again, and his body does it again. It's the same thing over and over again. It's a shame. I mean, as a Mets fan, having to watch that, it was painful.
I mean, they in general just don't make them like they used to.
No.
You know?
Speaking of contracts, back to the Ohtani one for a second. I mean, you know, as for the Jays getting them, I'm not overly pissed off that they didn't. I've said in our hockey pool chat that we have that even if the Jays had signed that deal, I would not be happy because I just think ethically it's fucking awful. But a lot of people don't know this. He's coming off his second Tommy John surgery at the beginning of a 10-year deal. And the reason why this guy is so profitable for teams is obviously he's his own brand, but he's also his own brand specifically, not because he's just a badass hitter, because he's a hitter and a middle of the rotation type starting pitcher in baseball these days. And when you can have modern day Babe Ruth, like, let's be real here. That's.
I mean, he's better because he's doing them both at the same time.
Yeah,
like, Babe gets he gets this comment as the modern day Babe Ruth, and I'm like, Babe Ruth didn't start hitting home runs until after he stopped pitching well. He went from pitching to hitting. He didn't do both at the same time. Ohtani's doing both at the same time. That's unprecedented.
Yeah, but I also think that's contributing to, the issues
absolutely.
with injuries.
He's burning the candle at both ends, no doubt.
I mean, I'm impressed he's done it as long as he has, to be perfectly honest. It's crazy to me that he's that good of an athlete. And you look at that and you're like, I guarantee you, if he went to a different sport, it wouldn't matter what sport it is. He'd probably just be a superstar regardless because he's just that good of an athlete all around.
It's that, it's a cultural mentality. Like, that's one thing Japanese athletes in any sport, when they commit, they commit.
Very true.
All right, let's shift gears here. There was apparently a leak in the last couple of days of the new X-Men 97 show, which is like I believe a continuation from where that show left off. I think there was 5 seasons in that show. 5, if I'm right.
I love that show.
I was talking to Kieran earlier today, and I also mentioned it in our group chat, I think, that like whenever anybody brings up X-Men to me, and whenever just you talk X-Men with anybody, the first thing I think of is not the movies, and it's not Hugh Jackman as much as I love him. It's not Logan. It's not, the upcoming Deadpool movie. I'm always brought back to this cartoon and how much of an impact it had on my childhood and the theme. And, I loved this show. This show was badass. I'm just wondering, we'll start with not necessarily what we hope to get out of the continuation, but how did you guys feel about X-Men back in the day?
Well, I loved it. It was part of that golden age of animated comic book series. We had this X-Men series coming right off the heels of, Batman the Animated Series, which was right in the middle of that amazingly awesome, I want to say it was WB run, or Fox, with all of the animated product. I mean, you had Spider-Man, the Hulk had a freaking amazing series, like Iron Man had a great, it was the peak of animated superheroes, and this one was the best. Like you said, it's the go-to. When you think Wolverine, it's that bright yellow suit. That's the first thought that comes to my mind.
I totally agree. I remember this being part of my Saturday morning ritual every weekend. I had to watch X-Men. I had to watch Spider-Man, and I absolutely fell in love with the X-Men through this particular cartoon, which actually started getting me into comics in general at the time. My uncle was a huge DC fan, so all I knew was DC, but X-Men were the ones that got me into Marvel.
So I got to bring this up. I just had Twitter open on the other side of my screen, and I seen this, and I feel like Johnny might remember this. Randy, I don't know if you were into this or not, but I've not seen a picture of this person in forever, and I also love the caption too. Gonna tell my kids this was Grand Admiral Thrawn.
Jesus. The face is familiar. I just can't think of the name of the thing off the top of my head.
You know what it is, Johnny?
I know the show. Absolutely.
You like you remember the name of the show?
Oh yeah.
Give it to us then.
Oh, you want me to tell you the story of the 3 typical average kids inside a haunted mansion who just by chance freed a ghost and now they're Beetleborgs? I remember the theme song.
Yeah, oh man, it didn't last long, but when this show was out, it was a nice little alternative to the Power Rangers.
It's 2 years, I think, 2 seasons.
I think it was 2, might have been 3. I don't know. I know there was at least 2 though, because they go through a costume change.
Yeah.
So, I've seen that. Had to bring it up. It was too good to not bring up. Yeah, X-Men 97 for me is just so. There's just so many good storylines in it. Do you guys remember? I think they aired it on instead of it being a Saturday morning, I think they aired it as a Saturday night. Excuse me, a Saturday night special where they showed back-to-back episodes, and it was like this 2-parter that was a crossover with the Fox Spider-Man cartoon. And the one part happens on Spider-Man and the other part happens on X-Men. It was your typical like Chicago TV show crossover, but back in this day and age.
Now, was that the small arc where Spider-Man actually started to mutate?
Yes, he's looking for help.
They did a few because they were also in the Secret Wars.
Oh, I don't remember the later stuff too much. I just remember that was like a big deal when that happened.
It might have just been them showing up in Spider-Man as Secret
Yeah.
Wars, but I do remember that they were part of Secret Wars. In fact, I think the Fantastic Four were part of that as well at the time.
Man, it definitely has a lot to live up to, but from those that got to see this leaked footage, the stuff that's gotten out on the internet, not that I've seen any footage because I have not, there's been a lot of positive talk about it, which is rare because in this day and age, it's dominated by negativity. So I don't want to get my hopes up too much, but I feel like this is going to be a fun nostalgia trip.
Well, and you said the magic word right there, nostalgia. That's why a lot of people are hyped for it. As long as it's done well, and obviously the animation styles, they're keeping it the same. So, and as long as they bring back a bunch of the people that were in the original cast, this is going to be a pretty easy home run, as long as the story is good.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about the story and how it, I don't want to say matches up to the original, but I mean that's sort of it, though. It's also where they pick up the story, right? Because if memory serves me, it's been a while since I've watched. If memory serves correctly, they ended the original series on sort of a cliffhanger.
I honestly don't remember. I know, and they go and do the Phoenix stuff, and we get the Xavier Magneto stuff. I honestly don't remember where the series even ends.
I want to say it ended heading into a big comic storyline, I think, but I can't remember which one.
One way to find out.
Yeah, I think that's what he's trying to do. Yeah, no, I don't remember off the top of my head, but I remember one of the first, like, remember back in the day, you could get these VHSs that would be like on them. They give you like 5 episodes of like this, like you could get a Power Rangers VHS, and it was you got like the 5 initial Green Ranger episodes, or you get like the Spider-Man animated show, and they'd have like a 5-episode arc from there where it was like the Sinister Six or something. Well, with X-Men, they had one, and it starts with when Jubilee gets introduced. And I really dug that. And I think one of the characters for me that stood out in the show that I got attached to was Gambit. I think this show has always been the reason I've wanted a good interpretation of Gambit in live action, which for my money, I'm still not sure has happened yet.
No, it has not. And it was never going to once they started sniffing around that film. Channing Tatum is not Gambit, okay? Just enough of that garbage. Stop that. I was saying that back then.
All right. Well, let's shift gears here. It might just be the 3 of us tonight. I thought there was a 4th coming, but we'll see. Let's move it to wrestling. We know Johnny's not a fan of the CM Punk return, but I also know Johnny loves to book and predict things. So it seems pretty clear to me, barring some sort of Steve Austin agreement, creeping in, that they're going to go with Punk and Seth more than likely at Mania. I gave a few thoughts in our little show chat earlier today about how I think I would do it. Johnny, we'll start with you. Say you're the booker here. You're not the guy that signs people, but you're the guy that's handed these guys, and you got to book what's going to happen here. What are you doing with these two? And like, where's the payoff here? Because obviously they're in a little bit of a pickle. Punk's new, and you don't really want to. I mean, it's not happening at Rumble, right? So Punk's going to get his wins between here and Mania, but there's going to be people that are going to be like, well, Punk shouldn't lose, but then you're going to have people that are like, well, Seth shouldn't lose because Seth has been there and been carrying the torch. And what do you do to have both guys come out of this with value going forward?
Well, this is where the the question marks start raising, and there is a big one. And I don't expect it to be a big one, but there is a pretty big question mark on the table, and that's Seth's contract. Because we know his contract expires during the year 2024. Now, that's not to say I think I would put my betting odds somewhere around 99% he resigns. I'm not confident in saying it. However, stranger things have happened in wrestling, so it's not a guarantee until pen to paper is put. So, working off the premise that he resigns or that he's going to, I don't take the belt off him because his run is too important. Because to me, there's a few things. This is the opportunity for Punk to show he's a businessman. Business first. To lay down, take the job on WrestleMania in his first main event match back in the company. It's that opportunity, to put everything behind you and be like, I'm here for business. I'm here to reuse an old catchphrase. It's best for business. So I definitely put Seth over, but how do you get there? Well, to me, that one's a bit easier. You've already had Punk declare for the Rumble, which obviously that was always going to happen. I think you sort of have to take the continuing with Punk, is best in the world shtick, because that's what you have to do this one on, because you you're setting up that awkward match where neither man is a heel, and that's hard to do. So unless you're going to turn one of them full heel, which I would not do until after this match. I think coming out of this match, you can have Punk go down that heel route and embrace it a bit more. But until then, you have to keep the baby face, because you want the pops, you want the you want the merchandise, you want all those things, and you don't sell as much merchandise if you're not if you're a heel. That's just a fact. So keep those ducats rolling in, keep them as a babyface, and you sort of have them both playing lefty righty, in babyface heel, bounce back and forth between the two, but still sort of staying neutral. I think you get to the Rumble, and I think you do the Punk has a good showing in the Rumble. I'd probably start him in there early, probably somewhere in the first third. I'd even say as low as like 3. I'd put him in there as the first guy out the curtain after the first 2. Maybe even put him in there at 1 or 2. But you put him in there early, you have him have a good run, put out 3 or 4 guys, have a good showing, have him look strong heading into the back half, and then you have Seth come out and eliminate him somewhere, whether that's just a distraction or actually getting out there and doing the old rope pull, or the Hogan 92 spot, with the handshake pullover or something like that. And then you just carry that on. There's your heat there. You keep it up. You keep them apart. Just build the promos. You set up most likely your Elimination Chamber to get the second main event spot. You put Punk over in that. You make him strong. And then you head into Mania, and you have Punk and Seth, and you have Seth take the win.
I like that you mentioned both of them being faces, which remind me before we move on from wrestling that I want to bring something up regarding that. But it reminds me a little bit of Brett versus HBK going into, I don't remember what WrestleMania it was, but the Iron Man match. Where both were very much faces. And I'm not a wrestling writer, so I don't know how difficult that is to navigate, but
I think the better parable, and you're right, it comes back again to Bret Hart, because it always seems to with Punk, but I think the better one is probably Piper Brett at WrestleMania 8, where you had both guys with long histories as heels, where you could play a bit more wibbly wobbly and who's the babyface, who's the heel, with their actions and the things they do.
It's funny because I kind of feel like there's just so much of what Punk does that harkens back to something that happens with Brett in the past, that I'm expecting either the Rumble or Mania to have some spot. You sort of mentioned it yourself, where Seth might be the reason Punk gets eliminated from the Rumble, which would be very similar anyways to Brett getting screwed out of the Rumble in 97. I guess it would be 97. With Austin there, or you have the Brett feeling like he got screwed in the Iron Man match scenario. I could see something like that going down. I don't think Punk will go over Seth in a Mania match unless there's clarity on the contract and Seth is not coming back, sort of thing, or if there's creative plans with Punk that go past that they're super over with. Bunch of ideas.
The thing is that after Mania, I think the test is going to be February as far as Punk's staying power, I guess.
Are they overseas?
That's they're in Australia for that one.
And then they're overseas again right after Mania too, right?
They're overseas a lot in the next year. They have February in Paris. May is Paris. February is Australia. May is Paris. I think July is Germany. And I think there's two other premium live events planned to be overseas in the course of 2024. So half of the pay-per-views next year are set to be outside of North America. And that's going to be a huge test because as much as Punk and Brett's careers parallel, Brett made his career on the European market. Punk has never really been huge there.
Agreed. And we'll talk about the promo from Raw in a few. But Randy, how would you book these guys going forward? Which is clearly, barring some sort of massive change, the direction that they're going.
Well, obviously, like Johnny said, you first, you get to the Rumble, you have Punk have a good showing. I feel like it doesn't have to be Seth that distracts him or he gets kicked out. I think you use the guy who's going to be next in line for the next feud. So say Drew could be the guy that just takes him out of the Rumble, since we already know they've had their interaction with each other. Obviously, after that, you're going to build up Punk as best you can so that he does get that Mania spot. And then, I think depending on Seth's contract, which we also know that it's based on Becky's contract. So if Becky resigns, Seth will resign. If she doesn't resign, there's a chance he might not resign. I think they're going to go hand in hand depending on when it comes to that sort of thing. So say he's going to resign, obviously he'll go over. They'll put up a good match because we know Punk can still go, and we know that Seth can go. So it should be a really overall great match. We still don't know. The one dark horse in all of this is Damian Priest with that briefcase. So it's one of those things where in the back of your mind, you have to wonder, regardless of who wins at Mania, do you pull the trigger with Damian Priest then? So it could be so that, because that's another feud you could easily set up with Punk, because he could be like, I just won my match and you come out and you stole the belt from me, essentially. So you could go immediately into that and have him kind of pushed more towards the heelish side of things, because he'll feel like he's been wronged. Plus, we all know at some point they're going to push Damian Priest into a face role anyway and take him away from the Judgment Day. So it would be a good transition all around. It would also give Seth a chance. If he did drop the title, it would give him a chance to recover and really heal up, since we know his back truly is messed up. But beyond that, I can't really see it going much any other way unless they have different guys decide to interject into things, like, Drew, or, even say, I'm trying to think of anybody else on the Raw roster who has no problems. Someone from the Judgment Day, could be Finn, could be, and we know that Punk's first match, even though it won't be televised, it's a house show against Dom. So that should be interesting. It's kind of a bummer that his first match in WWE isn't going to be something we see on TV, but they're planting seeds for different feuds, and I think that's kind of how it's going to play out. Is we're going to see those little seeds start to germinate during the Rumble and then on the road to WrestleMania, so that once Mania is done, Punk has a bunch of guys lined up ready to gun for him.
I'm just kind of I'm pretty set with the he'll likely lose to Seth in a WrestleMania match. Not saying that for sure, because I think most of us would be saying Punk was not going to come back at Survivor Series and be working backstage with NXT talent, and That's the last thing I expected from any of this. I thought it would just be very much show up on Monday nights and do his thing. I'm not surprised he's doing the holiday stuff, maybe the Kia Forum one, but like the Madison Square Garden one, that like it's Madison Square Garden. Like
It's
whether
the mecca of wrestling. It still is.
I mean, whether you're a wrestler, a music artist, whatever, like if you can headline Madison Square Garden, like that's a dream come true, right? So that doesn't shock me too much, but I would suspect Seth will come out, and I actually think Punk's probably going to win the Rumble. But if he doesn't, I would love for him to get screwed in some way that allows him to kind of harken back to the Bret Hart I got screwed bit. And I think a lot of what transitioning a bit here to the Seth Punk promo from Monday night, which I thought was fantastic, and I thought Seth was really good in it. I would really like people to remember that promo, and they probably will. And I would kind of like Seth to end up being the one that's right here. Like they're using real life elements, which is something I wish would have happened at AEW, but it didn't. And it's interesting. It's entertaining. But it's a long road to WrestleMania, and we'll see what happens. But I thought the promo was badass, and it was an awesome start. And I would love the payoff to be that what Seth is saying ends up showing up on screen. I hope it doesn't show up off screen, but it'd be cool if it showed up on screen.
Yeah, Seth's promo got me actually invested in it. I was still kind of bummed out with some of Punk's response just because you saw what he did on SmackDown and you're like, okay, this is kind of what we thought we were going to get on Raw when he first came back. But then this just felt like more like PG Punk, which MJF alluded to, but it's just like the whole thing of, the fact that when Seth went off on him and he was just like, okay, that's your one for disrespecting me to my face. And I'm thinking to myself, the real CM Punk would not even hesitate to just try to eviscerate you regardless. There's no, everybody gets one. No, that was really disappointing. To me, that part was disappointing. The fact of, and I know I had, shared like the whole thing that Bully Ray had said on Busted Open Radio. And I know it's, like I said, I do feel like it's part of the character that Punk's trying to convey right now. But it's just like every time he just says, I'm home, I'm just kind of like, ugh. But of course, with Seth, it fed into the promo. And so it was definitely a good setup. And Seth just knocked it out of the park. But Seth's always been a good promo. So I'm just glad that I feel invested now because of this promo that they had. And I can't wait to see where it goes.
Johnny, I want to pose a question to both of you, but I want Johnny to go first. This promo very obviously sounded like something else we heard before. What's your take on that and them going down that road, considering that was really the spot that, right or wrong, was the beginning of everything blowing up over there, where the cart really came off the rails. I've been trying to, and I've been asking you guys questions and Johnny a lot of questions, and even Jer, trying to understand like how WWE works now and who does what and who's where. I would love to be a fly on the wall that being pitched. Like, well, this is what we're going to do. We're going to feed into this. Like, what was your thoughts on them going that damn close to the Hangman Punk thing? And would you have done it? And just your thoughts in character and out of character.
Well, I mean, I'd say there's a high probability that Punk himself pitched it.
Really?
Yes, absolutely. Because it plays. I can't remember somebody in the chat. I don't remember who it was, so I can't actually give them props. But this is the difference between feeling like you're the big fish in a small pond to being a fish in an ocean. You know, you can be a shark in an ocean, and you're still not. There's still bigger fish than you. You know, but if you're a shark in a lake, you're king shit. Nobody can touch you. But in the ocean, there's bigger and meaner. That's the difference here. You know, he's back in what he perceives to be the ocean. And you can do things like that. The difference is I am 1000% certain that this promo was 100% scripted. Like you mentioned it in the chat, and I said that, you know, nobody goes out with a live mic with no idea. You know, Gorilla knows what you're going to say. You know, you don't get to go out there and do whatever you want in the WWE. In AEW, they do. You know, they get the classic style, the old school style, which you'd think would be something somebody like Punk would embrace, but clearly not, because he doesn't like getting insults shot at him that he's not expecting, which I get, whatever. Nobody likes that, but, you know, not everyone gets in their druthers and ruins their, you know, contracts over it. But this is something that there was a script for. They probably even rehearsed it in, you know, the afternoon, early evening prior to the crowd being let in. So this is not, you know, this might have even been a rehearsal change that Punk made. Like, you know, maybe try this. What if we do that instead? You know, maybe use this, you know, because that's a bit more how it works. You know, you still have, like, it's not as much as people like, oh, it's all scripted. Yeah, of course it is. But at the end of the day, you still sort of get your opportunity to be like, well, can we try this instead? Or how about this, and run it up the flagpole? And if the guy running Gorilla says, yeah, you can do that, you do it. And if the guy in Gorilla says, no, you can't do that, you don't do it. So that's the difference. Like, yes, he knew it was coming. I say there is a high probability he's the one who pitched the line, and they did it because it makes sense to sort of play that parallel, you know, because it does fit with the angle they're going on. And, you know, I like the idea in principle, but the thing that for me, it's like, as good as the promo was, that line made me feel like, oh, you've gone from redoing Brett's career to redoing your own career. So are you and Seth going to have a dog collar match in May? Like, you know, like, when all a band does is play the greatest hits, they stop filling stadiums.
Nah, I don't know about that one in today's day and age, but
well, you got to be like the Stones or Metallica to be pulling off the stadiums playing nothing but your greatest hits. I love Punk, but he is neither of those.
I love the tension of the stare down, because like you could feel tension.
You can see it
like,
just in that photo.
Yeah, like, and I love that. Like, I'm sure we've all been at some sort of gathering or family gathering where there's someone there that you don't like, and or maybe you know they don't like you, or it's mutual, and they're around each other, and you hear the but like you can feel the tension. Like, oh fuck, is this going to turn into a massive food fight? Is someone going to bring up that midichlorians are the best, and Johnny's just going to hit him with a sledgehammer?
If I had a sledgehammer, that would happen.
You know, I do like that, as long as it doesn't boil over backstage. Like, what's up?
It's just one of those Twitter things that makes you go, excuse me? Somebody reported that Kota Ibushi is dating Lizzo.
Huh.
Okay.
Interesting.
Kota responded with, I thought that was a wrestler. So I'm going to go ahead and say that that's one of those. So Tani to the Blue Jays, people.
Oh, boy. Still a fresh wound, man.
I know, but if I don't laugh about it, I'll cry about it, and I'd rather not do that.
I've had enough of the brawl out stuff and everything we went through over there with AEW. And fuck, I mean, I still don't think they've come anywhere close to recovering from that. And, their product's pretty cold right now. And I don't want that. And I see people online cheering on, like, wanting them to go to business. It's like, do you guys not remember what it was like with no primary main competition in North America?
Tribalism. Ain't it great?
Like,
how about just like wrestling? Period. How about that? Let's go with that.
I'm okay with having a favorite. I mean,
Right.
Hey, you can hold a gun to my head right now and say, hey, what do you like better, WWE or AEW? I don't know WWE enough. I haven't followed in a decade, so my answer would be AEW. But obviously, I'm going to watch WWE because Punk is over there, and Punk's my favorite current wrestler, right? So, and has been for a long time. But like, I don't know why people would want that. It's better for everybody. You know what's good for the industry? The fact that Becky and Seth have the option to get what are probably going to be insanely high contractual offers from AEW to go over there. Not saying they will. I think it's probably highly unlikely. But that if they want to, they're going to get paid out the ass to go over there. I know that's a little off topic here, but it's all deals with real life stuff. And I think that's if this feud can really lean into real life stuff and have something positive come from all that brawl out shit. And hey, it's possible AEW makes something positive come from that, because it sounds like the Bucks are going to lean into that stuff when they come back and are going heel. Maybe at the end of the day, in some weird fucked up way, there will be a positive ending to all this. I'm not expecting it, but it would be nice for all parties involved.
The positive ending is people just stop fucking talking about it. Period. Like,
it's negativity, man. That'll never stop.
No, I know that, but like, as long as we keep talking about it, it will go to, like, this story is being put on the level of the Montreal Screwjob, and quite frankly, it shouldn't be.
It was a work. Brett was in on it, brother.
There are still people that believe that had Brett not had Goldberg kick his head, that it was a work. But, I think the events of the previous May say that's very false. But I digress.
I mean, I'm good with what they're doing right now so far. I still want to see a little bit more of the vitriol that Punk can bring in terms of promos, but I have a feeling that's going to come in time. I think as long as they don't start retreading on some of the stuff that happened to him in AEW, I think we're fine. But like I said, Punk is good for the business. Good Punk is good for the business. Asshole Punk, not so much. It's just a fact. You want a happy CM Punk who's actually going to come out and say what's on his mind, get the crowd going, have great matches, and it's great for the business. We know his merch sales are through the roof already.
Brandon Thruston today on he does a podcast with John Pollock on Post Wrestling, and he had said from the Survivor Series debut to now, it's over 7 figures now, just in that amount of time in merch sales from him, which is nuts. And as Johnny alluded to, the longer you keep him face and hot, the more revenue that you're going to produce, because for whatever reason, heels don't sell as much. I guess the NWO would have been
I mean, Roman did pretty good sales as a heel, but I guess Punk must be just blowing it out of the water compared to what Roman did, in the prime of the whole bloodline thing. Because I'm not gonna lie, I've been over that shit for a while now, so I can't wait till that's gone and buried.
I just wanted to work out. At the end of the day, I want entertaining stuff, and if this is night one Mania main event, that'd be a lot of fun, because my oldest guy's here that night, and it'd be cool to watch this. Like, he never wanted Punk in AEW. My kid wanted Punk in WWE because he prefers WWE to AEW, and I was always like, no, I'm fine with him in AEW. But it'd be fun to watch these guys go at it at Mania. Little worried about the whole NXT stuff. Like, I was kind of hoping he would just come and like, hey, I'm a talent. I'm working the shows I'm on, and I'm not saying he can't be beneficial to those people down there. I just think you're playing with fire. You know, one guy could wake up one morning and get refused, morning sex from his woman, and show up to work pissed off, and Punk's offering advice, and he tells Punk to go fuck himself, and it's just like, what are we doing here? Come on, please, no. Like, and maybe that seems over the top, but I feel like they're valid concerns given what's happened.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
I'll take, like, I love Punk, but
it's keeping his ego in check. That's really what it is.
Yeah.
He has to have control of that ego of his, to the point of where, at least if someone says the wrong thing, he's not about to sit there and rip him a new asshole or start a fight backstage or something.
The other thing that's out there today, and it's just rumor, it has not been confirmed, although it was Meltzer that put it out there to begin with, and then Sean Ross Sapp addressed it today on Fightful. They did a video where the rumor is, anyways, that Meltzer had heard that WWE and WBD met recently about a potential Raw deal. And I thought Sean Ross Sapp had a really good point here, and I want to touch on it. Even if they did meet, and I know there's people, and Johnny brought up the tribalism a bit before, there's people that want that to happen so that they think AEW is going to be dead, and AEW fans do the same thing WWE way. Any way they can put them down, you go for your team, and rather than just being a wrestling fan, as Randy mentioned.
My team is pro wrestling. Thank you.
Yeah, let me remind people that, like, there are competitor brands on the same fucking networks. Just because, let's say Warner Brothers did get Raw, that doesn't mean AEW's gone. It doesn't. In fact, I believe I seen today that Warner Brothers Discovery owns something like 12.5% of the USA Network. Don't know if that's factual. If one of you guys want to look into that, something I'd seen on Twitter from someone who's pretty reputable. I think it was Warner Brothers Discovery that they mentioned. But my point is, just because, like, even if a WBD deal does happen, that doesn't mean that AEW can't get a WBD deal. It also doesn't mean that AEW can't get a deal on another network. I know we live in a day where people want violence and drama and destruction, and that's the popular thing that gets all the clicks. But, like, Johnny, is it as simple as the tribalism thing and people just want to see fucking carnage? Like, it seems like people want to find any excuse to be negative, regardless of who their side is, rather than look at things realistically.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically what it boils down to. It's the social media generation of I'm right, you're wrong. And that's the case for everything. Like, you can't fathom that you might be wrong, that this thing might be better than that thing, but both things provide different things. Like, the difference between the two companies is apples and oranges. This isn't this, like, people want to compare it to WCW and WWF, the height of the Monday Night. This isn't the height of the Monday Night War. This isn't the Monday Night War. They're presenting two different products. Like, all you have to do is look at the difference in time in ring between the two products. Monday Night Raw is a 3-hour show. How much of that do you think is actual wrestling? Spoiler alert, it's less than 45 minutes of a 3-hour show. You look at AEW, and the opposite is true. It's probably about 75% in-ring, 25% not. Like, it's... They're not presenting you the same product. I don't know why people can't just, like, have their cake and eat it too. That's all I know. I don't at all. No, I think that's just saying what it would be like if they did move to WBD, not what it is, because NBC Universal owns USA Network.
No. I had the network wrong. The
Okay.
CW is owned.
I don't believe so. I think it's a conglomerate. I don't think.
Yeah, CW is owned by CBS, which is, I think CBS is partially owned by Warner Brothers Discovery as well.
My point is, everybody tries to make it out to be this like big doom and gloom thing. Like, as far as I'm concerned, if WBD loses the NBA, which is a real possibility right now, why the fuck wouldn't you go all in on two wrestling companies? Like, unless WWE goes to get like exclusive rights or something, but like, why wouldn't you? And also, like, you're telling me there's not someone else out there. I know AEW doesn't put up WWE numbers, but like, you're telling me there's someone else out there that's not going to pay to get AEW on as a product. Maybe not as much as WBD, but still something that's serviceable for them. Like, AEW is not dying. Yeah, they have an attendance issue that they definitely need to figure out, but in terms of their presentation on screen, I don't see an issue here, guys. Like, I think they're going to be just fine and get a deal regardless if they stay with WBD or go somewhere else.
I mean, I think we're just finally seeing the growing pains for AEW, where the product finally is, settled in a little bit, and we're seeing the chinks in the armor that we didn't see before because of rose-colored glasses and just trying to just enjoy the fact that we had something different to WWE, and that's fine. Some of the best matches I can honestly remember seeing, I've seen with AEW, just because the quality level of these guys that have honed their crafts over in Japan and Mexico and coming over here. I mean, it's amazing some of the stuff I see on AEW TV that WWE is finally starting to go, wait a second. Some of this is good. We actually should start doing this. That's why you see guys like Dragon Lee coming over in NXT doing the same things that you see AEW doing week in and week out with all the luchadors they had that come in, and it works. I've gotten to the point where I was so disenfranchised with WWE because of poor storytelling, because they were on top for so long and had no competition, that the minute AEW came along, I was just instantly invested in it. And has it been great lately? No, but the match quality has never really wavered. It's just the stories behind those matches leading up to them haven't been the greatest. And I think they'll right the ship in time. And you're right. They're going to get a TV deal. Will it be as much as what Warner Brothers Discovery would have to put into the company to pretty much make it break even? Probably not. But they'll get something one way or another. This is something that just we need AEW. We need TNA. We need all these smaller promotions to at least have a solid following, because an alternative is good. It's good for the business. It really is. Wrestling, I don't think, has been this popular in years because of all the different types of wrestling we get to see.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, John, I know you want to get in there. I don't want to see it die, and I think the people that want to see it die, I think those people would be regretting it within a year or two after it happened, if it ever did happen, which I don't believe it will.
It's an awkward derivative where people are sticking to traditional means of measuring success in a market where that no longer applies. Because, spoiler alert, the Monday night ratings are lower in 2023 than they were in 1993.
By a lot. I mean, it works differently then.
Well, by 93, not by much. It's only a point or two difference. But if you compare it to the Attitude Era, that's where you get like ridiculously different numbers. But like, even if you compare it to the dawn of Raw in 1993, the ratings are down from that, because the ratings are down for everything. Like, if we were to pull up the NFL ratings, Super Bowl aside, the Monday Night Football ratings are probably down from where they were 20 years ago, because cord cutting is a real thing. Like, It's
Haven't had it in years. Not me.
exactly. So I mean, like, we're comparing it to these markets of TV ratings. Well, spoiler alert: TV ratings fucking suck. They've never been good. They're a horrible metric. Like, people don't understand how Nielsen ratings actually work. It's not an accurate measure of every household that watches it. Nielsen ratings were based on Nielsen households. You had to be a Nielsen household to count for Nielsen ratings. Like, the real barometer is pay-per-view buys. The real barometer is the attendances. And yes, AEW suffers on that front because they grew too fast and they outkicked their coverage. And that's their problem. Like, their numbers are good. They're up from where they were last year in a lot of places.
I think as long as they continue to have good TV numbers and good advertising deals and stuff like that, they'll be just fine. Obviously,
they need to get on a streaming network somewhere.
Obviously, only filling 2,000 seats sometimes in a 18,000 seat arena is a really bad look. But I'm okay with. I mean, I get it. They'd have to. You can't scale back yet because you have to book so far in advance. But like we talked about this last week or the week before, like I'd be fine with them scaling back on the arena size. Like I think it would look better, frankly. I want both to be successful. It's the most I've been invested in WWE in a long time, and I'm still invested in AEW. I have options, right? Like if I'm up at 1:00 in the morning and can't sleep, and I've already seen stuff with WWE, I can go to AEW or vice versa. That's a good thing.
I've attended shows on all the gamut. I've been in the 15,000 seat arena watching Monday Night Raw at the then Air Canada Center. I've been in the you can barely squeeze 200 people into the Legion Hall shows. I've been everything in between. And the smaller shows are better.
Backyard.
Well, those don't count. Like it just smaller venues get a bad rep, but some of the best shows I've been to have been in the smaller venues. Like the crowds are palpable. Like I've attended the greatest crowd reaction I have ever been a part of was the night Kevin Steen, now Kevin Owens, won the ROH championship in Toronto at the Ted Reeve Arena in front of maybe 3,000, 4,000 people tops. The crowd was immaculate. And I'm probably even exaggerating that. It might have even been closer to like 2,000. It's like, I don't know if you know, I doubt you know Ted Reeve Arena, but it is tiny as fuck. And it was still the greatest crowd I've ever been a part of because it was loud. It was the emotion was there. The size was there. There's nothing wrong with smaller venues as long as the vibes are there.
Agreed. And I hope it's something they seriously consider moving forward. But speaking,
I think you already see it with the next Canada tour.
Where they what? So I seen an advertisement. What is the Canadian Tire Center?
Ottawa. It's the Sens.
Where the Sens play?
Yeah.
Okay. That's where I was trying to figure out where the hell it was. But all right, let's shift gears here again, fellas. I want to talk Christmas movies. Let's just begin a little bit of an organic conversation. Someone can bring up a movie that we'll start with ones that we love. What are some, Christmas season movies that you guys love that are, maybe they're not go-tos every single year for you, but it's something that you watch fairly frequently, and maybe it's a tradition, maybe it's not. I don't know. Christmas movies. Johnny, how about it?
I mean, if you don't go to it every year, it's not really a tradition. But I guess around here, the one, we don't have the traditional Christmas movies. here. We never really have, you know. But I mean, we'll still watch, the classic. It's Rudolph. You know, that's the go-to. You know, you see it on cable. You don't actually. It's not on a streaming network anywhere, even at this time of year. It's not on
YouTube. It is on
It's
YouTube. Yeah.
officially, or
Yeah, I don't know if it's official or not, but it's there because we watched it like a week ago. So
I mean, there's lots of things there that probably shouldn't be, but it's the go-to. You know, it's the one I remember watching when I was knee-high to a grasshopper. You know, that's the go-to tradition movie for us, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Rudolph's a classic, obviously. Obviously they've all done different interpretations and sequels and whatnot, but like that old style clay animation, there's something about that movie that's just
It's timeless.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Randy, how about you? What's one for you?
So every year, on Christmas Eve, I will wrap gifts. And the one thing that TBS does is 24 hours of A Christmas Story. And I will sit down and I will watch it while I wrap gifts. And I do it every year. And when they did A Christmas Story Christmas last year for Max, that was actually a really good movie. So I'm thinking about how I need to add that to the rotation. But yeah, Christmas Story is like one of my go-tos when for the season that I have to watch.
I never actually watched the sequel that came out last year, but the original, oh yeah, it's a classic. You know, you'll shoot your eye out is a frequently oft repeated line in this house.
Yeah, when you get a chance, definitely sit down and watch the sequel. It was actually really good.
I know Johnny's heard me bring this one up before. It's probably not a classic to most people, but I watch it once a year around the holidays. I haven't watched it this year yet, but Family Man with Nicolas Cage set around the Christmas season. About a guy who at least for a few days gets to go back and redo things and ends up having a couple of kids, but then doesn't actually get to stay in that life and has the opportunity to go possibly make that life happen. It's also my favorite Smallville episode's like a different take on that one, that movie. I don't know. It's just something about that movie that hits close to home, and it's a go-to for me every year. So Family Man with Nick Cage. What else you got, Johnny, in terms of the good stuff?
I mean, the good stuff. I mean, I guess since you left it for me, I'll take Frosty off the board. You know, Frosty the Snowman.
One and two?
1 and 2, absolutely. They are, well, for me, it's a 1A, 1B, 1C situation. Frosty is probably 1C. Rudolph would actually be 1B.
So we were watching, I think it's Frosty Returns. I don't know how long ago it was now, but it was this month, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, man, this guy Frosty really sounds like John Goodman, and it turns out it is John Goodman. I never knew that, so that was a fun little discovery.
That one came out in I think like 96 or 97.
I don't remember, but
I remember when it came out. It was mid-90s because I remember it actually coming out and watching it.
Yeah, I mean, I remember like with what I've been doing recently as part of just kind of like trying to make my own traditions to kind of keep up with what I did as a kid is like I'm DVRing like Charlie Brown Christmas and Frosty and Rudolph and the Grinch. Santa Claus is coming to town. I DVR all that stuff, and then I'll sit down. My wife and I'll sit down Christmas morning, and we'll just go through and we will watch all of it to try to start a tradition.
Yeah, I mean, Frosty is great, and Rudolph is great. Really, really dig Family Man, as I mentioned. That's probably my go-to, my number one. But another one that I don't mind visiting, haven't done it in a while, so it's not a tradition, but is Just Friends with Ryan Reynolds. I really dug that movie when it came out. I almost said
I haven't seen
Ryan
that in a while.
I legitimately can't remember the last time I saw it.
Oh, it's been many years for me.
It pops up, like I'll see clips from it, like in the TikTok trend of putting up movies in 2,000 parts. You know, it'll pop up on my For You every now and again. I'll see a scene from it.
Randy, did you have any others? I know you did a bit of a list that you wanna share with us that are positive ones.
So one of the ones I do watch yearly that I still need to watch this year is Scrooged. That it's a I love. I mean, I've always loved A Christmas Carol in general, especially like the audio dramas that I listened to as a kid, waiting to kind of fall asleep for Christmas on Christmas Eve. But when I saw just this take on A Christmas Carol, Bill Murray was fantastic in this. I loved the effects they used and all the makeup, and it's just such a fun movie that it's really hard to not have that on your list to watch during the Christmas season.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely an excellent adaptation. You know, it sort of follows in that trend of ridiculous. Every year, it seems like there's 2 or 3 different versions of A Christmas Carol from somebody. I mean, they're either really good or awful. There really isn't much in between. I mean, everybody's got their favorite Christmas Carol version. Scrooge is a good choice. I mean, for me, it's sort of it's the one on that graphic there. It's the Muppet Christmas Carol with Michael Caine just going absolutely ham and just, you know, being at his greatest, dealing with Kermit and all of the Muppets and Statler and Waldorf. You know, like it's so. I love that one. But Scrooge is a great film. You know, I don't watch it every year, but you know, it's, you know, every few years I'll watch it. But it's one that I don't necessarily need to watch at Christmas, even though it is a Christmas adaptation of an adaptation of A Christmas Story. It's just a good Bill Murray movie.
I'm looking for a different interpretation of that movie to watch this year. I've watched so many different versions of it, and I really enjoy them. We just watched the Muppet one actually that you mentioned. Michael Caine in that movie is fucking great.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, no, I'm definitely looking for another one to watch. I want to move on to maybe overrated ones. We won't spend too much time on here, but give me a Christmas movie that maybe you don't hate, but like it comes on, you just kind of like roll your eyes. It's like, oh, I'm not doing this right now. I'm just not. Johnny, give me an overrated Christmas movie for you. One that, you know, maybe you hate it, maybe you just don't care for it. Is there one that comes to mind?
Well, it's entirely subjective, but for me, the one Christmas movie that I see pop up, and I'm like you said, I'm not doing this. I'm not, and I love it, but it's because it is so grossly overdone by everyone else. Elf. Like, it's a good movie. It's, for me, I don't even think it's one of Will Ferrell's 5 best movies, like, personally. But it's so grossly over talked about by people as like the greatest Christmas movie ever. Just, oh no, I see it on TV and I just changed the channel.
We were just watching a Christmas movie with him in it, with Ryan Reynolds. I don't know if it's called Spirited Away or something like that.
I think that's the name. It was
I think that is the name of it.
it's an Apple TV movie, right?
Yeah, we've only gotten halfway through because the kids woke up one night. But I actually, like, halfway through the movie, it's a 2-hour movie. Halfway through the movie, it's like, this is actually pretty good. I'm digging this. So,
Ryan and Will did a TikTok around the time when they were filming that movie. That was just the greatest thing since sliced bread.
Yeah, everything that Ryan Reynolds has been touching lately, regardless of what it is, has been pretty solid. So yeah, I kind of wish I had Apple TV just so I could watch that, because it really looked like it was a lot of fun.
How about you, Randy? You got an overrated Christmas movie or one that you just sort of scoff at?
Johnny stole mine. It's not that I dislike Will Ferrell. I just feel like a lot of the movies I've seen him in, he's playing the same character just in a different costume. So everybody going nuts over Elf, and I look at it and I'm like, I've seen this character before. It's like, it's like, damn, why does it have to be every movie he's playing practically the same character? So that's when I see movies where he's actually doing something different, I'm a little more invested in it. But like Johnny, Elf for me is definitely one of those movies where
It wasn't until Anchorman where he finally found different characters.
yeah. But like recently TBS did 24 hours of Elf, and I was like, yeah, I know what I'm avoiding today. It was just I'm
glad I don't get
do it.
TBS. I mean, it sucks to miss out on A Christmas Story because nobody airs it up here. Really, because it's on TBS. So it's just
thank God for that.
Okay.
No,
you're wrong.
That is my pick. I don't hate the movie. The same thing that has happened to me has probably happened to so many people. Is for years when we used to get TBS, you would get the 24 hours of the Christmas Story or however long it was, and my dad loved that fucking movie, and I'm sure one day I'll have a different appreciation for it, but like, it got so overplayed. I literally got to a point where I was like, I don't ever want to see this movie again. Don't hate it in terms of like, it's not a bad movie. It's a good movie, but I've had too much of it. I'm still on like a decade and a half hiatus from it that needs to continue. And to make matters worse, my in-laws every year wrap the Christmas gifts in fucking Christmas Story wrapping paper, so the fucking horror never ends.
That's it. I'm officially going to convince Jade to have the kids gift you with the leg lamp for Christmas one year.
Funny you mentioned that, because they have that too. Doomed by that movie.
Hey, at least the in-laws didn't do something like, here's your pink bunny rabbit onesie,
Thing would be taking a quick trip to the fire pit.
Stay out in the forest too long, and one day Jensen will ask for a Red Ryder BB gun.
No, Connor, we haven't yet. That's actually happening.
Oh God, no! It's 5, right? It's just 5 because I only did 5.
The graphic says 5, and then at the top here it says 10.
It's just 5. It's 5 game or 5 games.
Yeah, Randy's right. You have top 10 in the title.
Apologies. Wait, did I not redo the thumbnail for this episode?
You redid the thumbnail because I've seen the thumbnail, but the actual video title is.
Okay. Yeah, it's just top 5.
There are confused people, I'm sure.
Top 5, and honestly, it's just going to be Johnny and Randy doing their top 5, because I don't have 5. I have a few that I want to talk about, and we won't spend nearly as much time on this list as we did. I had this game, by the way. I won't spend as much time, or we won't spend as much time on this list as we did our Star Wars list last night. But let's dive into it. Let's go start with our number 5s, or your number 5s, guys. 5th favorite wrestling game, starting with Randy and then over to Johnny.
So, given my age, I think the one that I actually played, one of the games I played the most growing up, because I had the Sega Genesis, was WWF Raw. Even though it was, made by Acclaim, who owned LJN, and we know that how much fun games they put out. At the time, it was a great multiplayer game. My friends and I played so much of it. It was, granted, you got tired thumbs from that son of a bitch because of the grapple system, but it was just a lot of fun. And to hear the entrances digitized the way they were, and the different types of game modes it has, it was just when you're that young, and it was just great. It was a lot of fun.
That was definitely a great game. I remember it well. And I did like I liked the LJN era of WWE games. Royal Rumble was fun. I loved that game.
Agreed.
And was it WrestleMania or the one before Royal Rumble? That was on the SNES. It was I can't remember. It had Survivor Series matches in it. And I can't.
Wasn't it
remember
WrestleMania Arcade that was came out before, or was that after? Was that like in the mid-90s?
That was after, when you can hit people with like Doink's hammer and shit.
Yeah, that was like 90.
Undertaker using the tombstone.
5 when WrestleMania. It might have even been 96 when WrestleMania the Arcade game actually came out. I can't remember what it was now. Well, either way, I liked those ones. My number 5 for me. My list is probably more modern than that because none of my games are older than 98. So my number 5 is WCW NWO Revenge. It was the peak of gaming for wrestling in that era, I think. And THQ and AKI just made such a phenomenally amazing engine. You could do so much with it. The roster was huge. The game modes were fun. You had the battle royals. You had all those things that made wrestling fun, and it was fun gameplay mechanics. It wasn't bang your thumbs against the controller like you had, in the LJN era. It wasn't memorize combos like you're playing Mortal Kombat. It was just, I loved it. It was so simple, so intuitive. It had an amazing roster. Revenge is my number 5.
I'll interject here and say you brought up a game that was one of my favorites, and that was Royal Rumble for the SNES. I remember playing it for the first time at my cousin's, and I hadn't played at that time. I hadn't played a wrestling game like that ever. So for me, it was like so revolutionary, and it looked better than anything else that I'd played before. And I remember just really, really loving that game. Randy, what do you got at 4, man?
So my number 4 is what you have pictured on the screen: Pro Wrestling for the NES. That was my first wrestling game, and I played the hell out of it.
It was the first wrestling game.
Well, you also had like there was also a Tecmo wrestling game that I think came out.
It was after that.
Not too much after that, but it's like
no, it was maybe a year later.
But I mean, this one, it was a lot of fun. I used Starman the most in this one because I at the time I didn't realize he was I didn't realize what a luchador was at the time. So getting to see some of the moves he got to do was actually really cool. And then as I got older and started watching the WCW, when we started getting like Juventud and Ray and La Parca, and watching these guys do this, like I remember doing that in that video game. This is great. But I mean, it's not as in depth as it could have been, but for what it was at the age of how young the Nintendo was, it was a lot of fun. I'm not gonna lie, and it had a good difficulty. I mean, it wasn't like super easy. It wasn't super hard, but it could get there if you played long enough. But that's with any game with the NES back then.
Yeah, I mean, they were fun. I was a Tecmo guy. Tecmo World Wrestling was mine. I enjoyed the crap out of that one. I didn't really play pro wrestling much like that one. Like I said, Tecmo was the one I had. So I did not have both. My number 4 is sort of an off-the-wall entry. Well, not off-the-wall entry if you actually played it, but Legends of Wrestling 2 is my game. I love, if you've watched these shows long enough, you know that I am a student of the game. I love the history of pro wrestling, and seeing a lot of people in this game and on that roster that were names I'd only heard about growing up, or guys that I'd only seen like videos in magazines and stuff like that. And I loved it. I loved the roster. There was so many guys that you didn't have represented from, mainline like WWF titles or things like that. And, it was fun to play with people that were from the history of pro wrestling. And to be honest, it had one of the best career modes at the time. You could have no two career modes were the same, because you had, something in the neighborhood of 20 different available storylines per region, 5
Damn.
different regions, and the national circuit. Like there was so much to do throughout the course of the game that you could do it all. And each character had their own story mode. Some had character exclusive stories. There was just so much you could do in it, and I loved it. It had some good music in it. They did have some of the Jimmy Hart music, which was fun. And it had just an excellent roster for the time. I loved it. It also had an amazing soundtrack too. Like quintessential butt rock. It was awesome.
Another one for me, and then I'll let you guys just carry on with the rest of your lists, was SmackDown 2. I don't know if it's going to appear on anybody else's list. But I remember you and I played a lot of SmackDown 2 when I got even the first one when we rented it. But I loved the second one, and like I can't remember if it was just called career mode or story mode or whatever, but all the different cutscene story stuff that would come up for the first 3 years that was pretty unique, and just all the created characters that we had, and it was a lot of fun. I miss those times.
Definitely a fun game. Didn't make my list, but I probably would have had a better time. I sort of like, wait, this is a top 10, and then I'm sitting here thinking, and I'm like, oh, I could have easily got to a top 10 just from games that I forgot about while doing my top 5, because I've already thought of 2 that might have made my top 5 had I thought of them at the time I was making this list.
Right, and I'd actually played that too a lot, and it barely missed my top 5. So
it's a great game. It sort of ties into like that fun stories of wrestling. Like when I got a PlayStation at the time, my parents went to, I don't know if it was Best Buy or Future Shop at the time, or Walmart or wherever, but it was the height of the Attitude Era. My parents bought a PlayStation for myself and my brother for Christmas the year SmackDown 2 came out, and they asked the employee at the store what the best wrestling game was they could get, because they knew that'd be what I'd want. I'd have a PlayStation and a wrestling game. That was it. Do you know what game was underneath my Christmas tree that year, Randy?
I mean, I would hope it was that one, but I have a feeling it wasn't.
It was not that one. It was WCW Backstage Assault.
Oh, God. I'm so sorry. Clearly someone who didn't know what the hell they were talking about.
Or somebody just looked at the stock and said, we have 25 more copies of this than the other one. Let's sell it. But no, I enjoyed it. It was so bad. It was good.
Yeah, it had its moments.
Plus, it was, hardcore, and I was okay with that. But I digress. Like I said, there were more games that I thought of off the top that I would have added to my list that I didn't. WCW Super Brawl should have made my list. I loved that game.
Yeah, that was a fun game.
The character profiles, again, that's another one that my brother and I will quote all the time. Randomly someone will, every time the phrase "it's not my fault," it will be yelled like Rick Steiner. Because that's just what we do. And I don't know if you ever played it, but Saturday Night Slam Masters.
I've seen it, and I kind of wish I'd gotten to play that, just because it looks like it would have been just so much fun to play. And
I loved it. Titanic Tim the Battle Axe was so awesome as a character. You had Stinger and Scorp. Oh man, I loved it. The roster was so amazing, and it probably should have made my top 5, but it didn't. So what are we at now? 3s? Did you do yours yet?
So for me, 3 was WCW NWO Revenge. And to add on to what you had, I just, at the time when that came out, I was like all WCW at the time. So to get to be Goldberg or get to be Sting, that was just amazing. So those were my 2 favorites at the time. But also what I thought was kind of neat was I actually when going online, they actually had FAQs where you could say, hey, if you want to try to create a look
Oh God.
similar to a similar WWE wrestler or WWF at the time, this is what you have to do. So I had, I made like guys like turn guys into the Undertaker and things like that, which was kind of neat at the time to have that in a WCW game, even though it was just straight up,
I had
WCW wrestlers.
I had so many printed CAW guides for, Revenge, No Mercy, and SmackDown 2. There were just so damn many. I wasted so much ink and paper printing off those CAWs. Some of them were really good though.
Yeah, I
But
know. Some of them really were, and then some are like going, dude, what the hell were you thinking? Why do you think this is a good representation of so and so?
my number 3, again, I'm going a bit off the board. Fire Pro Wrestling returns. It's the PlayStation 2 game that I played mostly for the PS3 because that was the easiest console for you to be able to because they had USB ports where you could download rosters
Hmm.
from the internet and import the characters into the game because there was basically no roster limits. It was just limited to your hard drive size. You could have so many great rosters. I would import, guys from like 85 to 89 NWA. Same with WWE. Like you could have matches that were just redonkulous, and the simulation was so good. Like Fire Pro Wrestling has always had the best engine for simulation because the matches actually look sort of authentic. It's just so goddamn fun that I wish that the newer game that came out, I think Fire Pro Wrestling World that came out a few years back, would have been as good, but they locked themselves in and they didn't have as many of like the fake guys this time around where you could just like rename them, but they were clearly who they were supposed to be because they had the New Japan licensing agreement to add some of their guys too. It was just so goddamn amazing.
I was about to say, because I think I've seen that in the PlayStation Store.
Yeah.
Because it's like, there's Okada and Kenny Omega and all those
Yeah.
guys that are in there. And yeah. Yeah, I kind of wish I had gotten more into like New Japan and things like that, just so I could have appreciated some of these guys I'm getting to see now a little bit more. And I know if I'd gotten into those wrestling games, I probably would have had I would have probably had a bigger appreciation overall for wrestling as a whole, rather than just my small views with WCW and WWF at the time.
Well, I mean, at the time, that was sort of the views everyone had, right? I mean,
Yeah.
there wasn't you might be lucky to know ECW at that point. Like I knew of Japan sort of in the ephemeral. I hadn't actually seen any of it really, except for like the clips you'd see watching WCW when Muda would come over, or Liger,
Mhm.
or in the mid 90s when they did like the Starrcade 96, 95. I think they did the WCW versus New Japan.
Mhm.
That was awful because I didn't know half those guys at the time.
Well, and then of course that one WCW game that came out with the PlayStation 1, they had a bunch of New Japan guys in that as well.
Yeah,
Because
but they didn't
had
have
like,
the names though.
no, they didn't. But you could tell when you go back and look at him, you're like, oh, this supposed to be this guy, and it's supposed to be this.
Yeah,
Like this one's supposed to be Muda, and this one's supposed to be, yeah. So they did that too. But
that was I think that was the first AKI game. I think
so.
WCW versus the World. If
Yep.
you're unaware of what we're talking about. Man, I'm not even thinking about Japan because they had some wicked wrestling games too. Giant Graham, Virtual Pro Wrestling. Those were some awesome games too. My number 2, SmackDown, Here Comes the Pain. It is the quintessential SmackDown game. It is the best SmackDown game. The story was amazing. The gameplay was peak SmackDown. That's it. That's my go-to. SmackDown, Here Comes the Pain.
Well, that's my number 2 as well. So I played the hell out of that game. I always would go with my own creator wrestler, but eventually I would get bored of what I'm doing and I would make the move to trade him to the other brand and totally reimagine him with a different package and different look, different music. Create my own storyline as to why the move was made. Yeah, I did so much with that game. It was so good.
It really was. It was peak gaming, I think. Number one, though, is the greatest wrestling game ever made. No Mercy. It is the greatest wrestling game ever made. From the Royal Rumbles to the cage to the ladder match, the introduction of the ladder match, to the story mode with the branching career path, to the shop, and let's not forget the most addictingly annoying menu music in the history of gaming.
Agreed. And that's my number one as well. So it's kind of hard to have a list of your top 5 games, especially wrestling games, and not have that as your number one. And if you don't have it as your number one, I mean, is it because you have to ask the question? Is it because it was well before your time, or did you just not like wrestling games in general?
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing. It is peak. At that era, it was peak. Nothing, you couldn't imagine anything would top it. I mean, which is funny because you had WrestleMania 2000 come out, a year and a half before that, roughly, and then this followed it up with basically the same engine, but a much better story mode, like a much better career mode, everything else in it, with the, all of the characters having, at least 2, sometimes 4 different attires. The split characters where, attires 1 and 3 would be one guy and 2 and 4 would be another. And then you had the ones that 1, 2, 3, 4 were all different people. Like, oh man.
Yeah, I mean, and I kind of wish that what AEW did with their game, because I know they tried to recapture that magic with that same company, with the same team, with Fight Forever. I feel like it needed more time. Even though it'd been in development for as long as it was, just because you used the same developer that did No Mercy, it kind of fell flat a little bit for me. I don't know about you.
I mean, the engine is there.
Yeah.
Like, I liked the game engine. I liked the gameplay. The mechanics felt good. The stuff under the engine looked good, but other than that, you could only play it so many times because there was so little you could do in the story mode, even with, being able to play through with each of the different characters. There were so few storylines that, you could kind of, and they were so short. I mean, I literally, when that game came out, I streamed for like 6 hours and did a storyline, like a career mode with Eddie Kingston from start to finish. That's short.
It is. And I was kind of actually disappointed with the truncated entrances. I would have loved to just see the full blown entrance, because some of their entrances are just absolutely amazing, and it's part of what gets you hyped when you're watching it on TV. And to have them just kind of show up on stage for like 10 seconds and then the entrance is done, you're kind of going, wait a second. So I mean, that's one of my bigger gripes.
See, for me, that was actually a positive. For me, it was a positive because once you see an entrance once or twice, you're skipping it after that. Even in video.
Love entrances given me every time.
I'm an entrances off guy. Like once you see them a few times, that's it. I'm happy just turning the entrances off, get in the ring, and do the match.
It's bad enough that you can't remember getting your ass kicked in Battlefront 2 all the time.
Because it didn't happen.
But now you're going to hate on wrestling entrances in video games.
I don't hate on them. I like them. But after you've seen them a few times, I don't need to see them anymore.
You're breaking my heart.
So a quick question for you then. With your creative wrestler and Here Comes the Pain, did you actually take the time to create your own entrance, and did you skip it? And did you skip it every time it came out?
Every time? No. I
was about to say.
No. I put the work in on those. Same with, like, I don't know if you ever played them, but Raw 2 for the Xbox. that one had a pretty intricate entrance creator suite where you could like time the pyro and the entrances and stuff like that. Like, no, you put the work into those and you watch it, but after you've seen it, a dozen times, it's sort of like, okay, that's enough. That was my number 3, Connor. I had Fire Pro Returns in my number 3 spot. So yes, I spent copious amounts of time editing rosters for that game and playing that game.
On the AEW game front, it's basically what I was expecting it would be from the previews that we've seen. It is not a very good looking game. It just isn't. But like Johnny said, I think the mechanics are there anyways for good gameplay. But there's a severe lack of options in the game, and it gets kind of boring quick. And even a lack of roster, really, when the game first came out. And hopefully their next venture into video games is better than this one. I just think in 2023, you need your, wrestlers to actually look like how they look in real life, or to the best of their ability.
Yeah, some looked good, some did not.
I literally thought CM Punk was fucking the guy from Grand Theft Auto 4 when the game came out. I was like, what?
Yeah, and I think the idea of having certain wrestlers come in as DLC, no, that's just the idea of microtransactions and shit, and that's something I've always hated. But I mean, I get it. You're trying to make money out of it, but to hold off teams like FTR, the Acclaimed, Hookhausen, and having them all as DLC, it's just like, come on, man.
I mean, it wasn't such a big deal for me in that regard because it was a discounted price game. So you could get, the season pass stuff cheaply.
Yeah.
I don't know the price. I don't know if season 2, what that was, or if it was an additional cost or what. But I mean, buying the first edition with the Elite edition was what it was called. It was like $10 more, and that was still cheaper than of a game, a full price title for anything else.
Yep, that's what I bought too. So I know I got that, and it's again, I think they're just getting ready to drop season 2 stuff. I think like the Acclaimed.
I think season 2 was 2 weeks ago. I think when it dropped.
Yeah, that's what like the Acclaimed is a part of that, and I'm trying to think.
Yeah, they're the first batch. I don't think they've announced the second. We have ideas, speculations, but no confirmations.
What was your guys' number ones? I didn't get a chance to hear them.
No Mercy.
No Mercy. I saw someone or heard someone bring up WrestleMania 2000. I had that for the N64. Loved the the cartridge design on it, that it stuck to the black with the black and green lettering. I don't remember too much about the game. I just remember really liking it.
It was the same game.
There's No Mercy?
Yeah, it was No Mercy. Yeah.
Oh, so I mean, I didn't get to play No Mercy, but I guess I did get to play No Mercy.
Yeah, they weren't that far apart in terms of release, and it was the only thing that No Mercy had over WrestleMania 2000 is just it was a little more in depth with storyline and stuff.
And then the ladder match too.
Mm-hmm.
The ladder matches came in No Mercy, not WrestleMania 2000. Everything else was the same, and it had more of a SmackDown 2-esque career mode than No Mercy, which was more character based.
Now, box arcade games. Did you guys have a favorite for wrestling?
No, WrestleFest.
That was the one that they had at like the laundromat, right, in Oshawa?
I think they had it at the laundromat. I think so.
I remember that in a couple of places.
The one over at Midtown Mall?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they had it for a while.
I
remember it at a...
And the entrances in that were very much like the entrances in the AEW game, right? They come through the blue curtain, and you get like 5 seconds, and they're done.
Pretty much. But I mean, they were like constantly like they were walking straight to the ring. They didn't actually have any sort of entrance so much as it just played the the MIDI version of their theme song, and then they just walked to the ring. Everybody's entrance was uniform.
Yeah, the one I played the most, and of course I found it again in we have a place called it's literally just called Barcade, and $10, all you can play arcade games, and it's WW Superstars, which I was kind of like, wow, this is great. They had this one here, So it's I forgot how difficult it was, but as a kid, I didn't care. I just kept feeding quarters in the machine.
Yeah, I mean, I remember the console-ish versions more than the arcade cabinet, because we didn't. Yeah, that's one thing we didn't really have around here very much, was a proper arcade.
There was one right in between where you and I lived for a little bit in our youth, and it went away real quick. I think
it was there for like a cup of coffee.
Yeah, I think it was gone around 98 or something, 97, 98, about the time whenever Wayne Gretzky's 3D hockey came out.
Yeah.
Was the last game I remember playing there. That was like a new box arcade game, and they had a couple of wrestling ones there. I think the pool hall had a wrestling one too.
They might have. I never really went to the pool
hall. Does anybody know what the last wrestling box arcade game was? It might be the one that's over in Palladium right now.
I think.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think they did one a few years ago. But the last one I can remember was, I think, Royal Rumble. The one that came out on the Dreamcast in like 2000. 61, I think.
Yeah, he's nearing the end. And speaking of nearing the end, I think we have come to the end of our show tonight. Thanks for tuning in. Those of you tuning in after the fact, don't forget to leave comments down in the comment section down below. Let us know what you thought of the show, the topics, everything we discussed. We'll clip out certain events and put them up on the channel as we go here. Johnny, what do you got going on? Where can everybody find you at?
Here, there, and everywhere. That's where you can find 64 at Google. But yeah, here, there, everywhere. Tuesday nights, Wednesday nights here. That's where you can find me.
Randy, where can everybody find you at, man? What do you got going on?
You can find me on X at Giggity Giles. Obviously, Tuesdays and Wednesdays you find me here. I know usually it's a Wednesday or Thursday night for me, but I also record a sports / a pop culture podcast called The Sports Brew, where we just drink, get dumb, say the stupidest shit you can think of, but also talk sports on top of it. It's a lot of fun.
Sounds like fun. And speaking of fun, I think I've had enough of Johnny's revisionist history when it comes to Star Wars Battlefront 2. So I'm going to put this out there into the universe right now. I don't know when. So we'll say sometime in the next few months, since you can't really play it online, because it would require me bringing you out here. But sometime in the next 3 or 4 months, I'm officially challenging you to a round of Star Wars, maybe a series of rounds, maybe a galactic conquest of Star Wars Battlefront 2. And I say, either record it or we stream it. What say you?
I say you'll have to contact my agent.
He shows his cards.
That is such the heel answer.
Wait, what? What?
What? Oh, okay.
I mean, I get the joke you're going for. That I see you made it in the chat there. But what? They probably made that exact joke on a random Christmas Raw in like '99.
Tune in Tuesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, Star Wars: A New Hope watch along, and we'll say that's the deadline for Johnny's answer on doing the Star Wars Battlefront 2 match. If he declines, we'll declare it the Eric Bischoff Vince McMahon 10 count out, and I'll declare myself the winner of said match. But yeah, Monday night, 9 p.m. Eastern. Check out Tonight in Haddonfield with Dean and myself. And then the last Welcome to the Geek Side before Christmas next Wednesday, 10 p.m. Eastern. Until then, stay safe. We'll see you next time. Good night.
Thank you.